is finally time to review my most anticipated film of the year. What's up guys, my name is Ryan, welcome to my channel if you are new here. So this is of course going to be my review for the new third installment in the Knives Out franchise. I absolutely love the Knives Out franchise. It's one of my favorite movie franchises of all time, and Knives Out is one of my favorite movies of all time. I am a big mystery fan. Mysteries are one of my favorite things in the world, and I think the Knives Out franchise is just a fantastic murder mystery film series. I've been waiting and so excited for a third Knives Out film ever since Glass Onion dropped back in 2022, and it is finally here, so it's time to talk about and review it, and I'm so excited to. And don't worry, this is going to be a spoiler-free review. So what did I think about Wake Up Dead Man? Overall, I thought it was really good. It wasn't great, it was a bit disappointing in some areas, and I had some problems with it, which we'll get into, but I'm gonna jump into my pros first and what I loved about the film. First thing you have to talk about is, once again, they assembled a fantastic ensemble cast for this film. When they announced the full, main cast of the film, I was like, that looks like one of the most fun casts ever assembled. And every actor plays their character very well. I have to name them all. Glenn Close, Josh Brolin, Mila Kunis, Jeremy Renner, Kerry Washington, Andrew Scott, Daryl McCormack, Kaylee Spaney, Thomas Hayden Church. I think I got them all. But the standouts here clearly being, once again, Daniel Craig, and especially Josh O'Connor. Daniel Craig is of course back as Detective Benoit Blanc. He's still one of my favorite fictional characters. I love his desire to expose the truth and get justice and to see the guilty party punished. And I also love his southern drawl. It's so pleasing to the ear, and I just love the way he talks and his cadence and how he has these little sayings. I just really enjoy and have so much fun watching his character. I can't not listen to the guy when he speaks. But Josh O'Connor gives the best performance in the movie. He is fantastic in this film. Josh O'Connor plays a character by the name of Father Judd, who is our Marta or Helen type character this time around. And that's another thing I love about these films, is that each film has a main character that they make us care about and that we really get to know, and that is kind of on an arc and a journey throughout the film and helps Blanc with the investigation and the mystery. And they really make us care about them and root for them. And that's Josh O'Connor's character of Father Judd. This is Father Judd's story. And I just loved his chemistry with Daniel Craig and seeing their back and forth and their dialogue and seeing these two people with very different worldviews working together to solve this seemingly impossible crime. It's so interesting because you have Father Judd, who is a priest and believes in God and miracles and is really trying to help this corrupt church. And then you have Blanc, who is this kind of angry atheist. There are a couple moments in this film where he kind of goes off and talks about his problems with Christianity and how he thinks it's fake and irrational. But I thought it was so interesting and so much fun having the two of them work together. And I think this film did a pretty good job of communicating how, even though we can be very different people and we can have very different worldviews and be very strong on our stances and what we believe, we can still love and respect each other. And I think that's one thing that happens between Blanc and Judd throughout the film, is they come to respect each other and develop a bit of a friendship, even though they have very different worldviews. I really loved how they kind of learned from each other throughout the film. The film is also hilarious like the first two were. Now, I didn't love every joke. There are a few jokes that are vulgar and just really not my type of humor and not what I enjoy. But for the most part, I thought the humor was really clever, and this film consistently put a smile on my face with its humor. And of course, it's a murder mystery film. The main thing you want to know is this a great mystery? Heck yes. As a lot of the reviews have been saying, Rian Johnson has done it again. He has crafted and delivered another fantastic murder mystery. It's complex. I loved all the twists and turns and reveals and how it kind of played with my mind. Now, I was able to predict a couple things and I did have my theories going in, but the film did such a good job of making me second guess and doubt myself and making me think maybe I'm wrong and this is the solution or this could be part of the answer. The investigation and the journey to get to the reveal was very well handled and was so fun and enjoyable to watch. Even though I ended up being right about a couple things, the reveal in this film still blew my mind, and that's usually the best part about a murder mystery, right? You want to have a really good reveal, and this film had exactly that. Me and my friends actually watched this film for my birthday party. A lot of my friends came over and we watched this film, and it was so much fun watching it with everybody and getting their reactions. I had some people nudging me, telling me what they thought the answer was, and then throughout the film I heard some of my friends say, "What the heck? How does that make any sense? I'm so confused." And then when the reveal came at the end, I was looking around the room and some people had their like jaws on the floor. It was just so much fun. Just so well done. I love how Rian Johnson made this film a locked room mystery, or an impossible crime. If you don't know what that is, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's a crime that's seemingly impossible to commit, impossible to solve. For example, you find someone stabbed in the back in a room that is locked from the inside, and there's no windows or doors or other entrances, and if there are, there's no sign of forced entry. There's no fingerprints, there's no evidence or anything to suggest that anybody else was in that room, but you know someone has to have done the deed. So how the heck did the murder happen? And that's what this Knives Out mystery is. I've watched some interviews with Rian Johnson, and he said that some of his inspirations for this new film were classic locked room mystery novelists like G.K. Chesterton. I've actually been listening to a lot of his work, his Father Brown mysteries lately, Edgar Allan Poe, John Dickson Carr, and there's just parts of this film that really feel like a love letter to classic locked room mysteries and impossible crime novels. There's actually references in this film to famous locked room mystery novels, most notably The Hollow Man by John Dickson Carr, which is known as the greatest locked room mystery of all time. John Dickson Carr was known as the master of the impossible crime and the locked door mystery. And they consistently reference his book throughout the film and talk about it. And for me, as a mystery nut, as a big mystery geek, those scenes where they were talking about and referencing classic murder mystery novels was just so much fun and so enjoyable. If you are a Knives Out fan, if you are a murder mystery fan, this is another incredible Knives Out mystery. However, as I mentioned earlier, it's not a great film. I thought it was a really good film, but not a great film. I did have some problems and disappointments with the film, so let's jump into my cons. First con I have is that some of the cast and the characters I felt like we could have gotten to know a bit more. I felt like a lot of our characters could have each used a bit more screen time. There were a few characters that I wanted a bit more of, and I wanted to kind of get to know them a bit more and understand them a bit better. Another thing about this film, and this one's a small criticism, this film didn't end up having some symbolic meaning behind its title, at least none that was really explained like it was in the first two films. One thing I loved about the first two films is that the titles were symbolic of something having to do with the mystery. Both of them have a scene where Blanc says the title of the film and uses it as an analogy or metaphor, and he explains what it means and what it's symbolic of, and we don't really get a scene like that where Blanc says "wake up dead man" and explains the analogy or has a metaphor for it. Didn't disappoint me too much. Like I said, it's a small thing, but I did kind of miss that, and I felt like you could have easily had a scene like that where Blanc says the title of the movie and explains the symbolism behind it. Another criticism I have is that sometimes the film feels a bit bombarded and crowded with commentating on a bit too much at times, especially with a certain character who is a struggling politician. There's some points in this film where I feel like it's trying to commentate on and explore like religion and faith and politics, and I just felt like it was a bit too much and a bit in your face about it, and I don't really like when films get super political. And I know the first two films had some politics in there, but it didn't really feel like it was very in your face about it. It had like the right amount of it, but with this film I just felt like it was trying to push a message at certain points, and it just felt like sometimes the priority was the commentary on religion and politics rather than the murder mystery. And there were points in this film where I'm just like, can we just get back to the fun murder mystery? That's kind of what I'm here for. That's the main thing about the film. But probably my biggest criticism with the film is the thing I was most nervous about heading into the film. Once I found out that this one was going to take place at this Catholic church, and the main character was going to be this priest, and it was going to have themes of religion and faith, I was really nervous that Christianity wouldn't be portrayed very accurately, and it would say stuff like that the Bible teaches something that it doesn't teach, or say something it doesn't say. As a Christian, I was really worried, and this film did surprise me a bit. Like, there's actually some good biblical truth to be found, especially with the character of Father Judd. He has a decent amount of moments and lines in this film where I'm like, yeah, amen, that's right. And in particularly, there's one scene where all I'll say is that he has a conversation over the phone with someone, and that scene is so well done, one of the best scenes in the film. It starts off as kind of a joke, but then it starts getting real serious and emotional, and I loved that scene. But then there's some other things that Father Judd says, and not just Father Judd, but other characters in the film say, that I'm like, I'm not sure what you mean by that, but if you mean it in this certain way, that's not right. And then they say some other things where I'm just like, straight up, like, yeah, that's not right. Now, I don't have time to dive into like every single line that I thought was wrong and dive into kind of the theology of the film. I don't want this video to be super long, but I do eventually want to kind of take another look at this film and pull out some of those lines and talk about whether it was biblically right or wrong and why, but I'll just try to give a quick example of what I'm talking about. Like I said, Father Judd has a lot of really good lines in this film, and I think there's a lot of biblical truth that comes from his character. Father Judd was the best character in the film, and I love how he comes to this corrupt church, kind of ruled by a leading priest with an iron fist, who's angry and condemning and builds up anger in his congregation. His congregation, like all our suspects and characters in the film, are kind of in depressed, angry, struggling places in their life that they don't want to be. And the lead priest of this church, Monsignor Wicks, just takes advantage of them and builds up this anger in them. And he doesn't really even give a care about anyone in his congregation. But I love Father Judd and how you see throughout the film that he actually cares about the people in this church, and he tries to help them find healing and show them the love of Christ. But also, there's some lines where I felt like he wasn't portraying Christianity properly. And there's some lines that he says that I think might give non-believers the wrong idea about Christianity and Jesus and who he is. I love how he emphasizes grace, but I felt like maybe he emphasized grace and forgiveness a bit too much. And so much to the point where, like, some scenes in the film, some moments with Judd, I was like, does he believe in justice? And that, as Blanc says, that the real killer needs to be found out and punished for what they've done? Like, does he believe in accountability for one's actions, that there are consequences for one's actions? I feel like there's a lot of people who preach and emphasize grace and forgiveness, which is good, and God is gracious and forgiving, but he's also a God of justice who will punish the wicked and unrepentant, and who teaches that there are consequences for your actions and people need to be held accountable when they do something wrong. And they never really talk about sin and our need for God, and they kind of preach and give off this impression that Jesus is all unicorns and lollipops and rainbows, and he kind of approves of and accepts any way you live and anything you do, which is just straight up not biblical. And watching back the film, I've seen the film twice now actually, I think Judd believes in justice, but he talks about and emphasizes grace and forgiveness so much that I feel like he kind of has the same problem. The way he speaks about Jesus and the way he portrays Christianity, people might get the wrong idea about Jesus and who he is. And I know you can make the criticism, well, you know, this isn't a Christian movie, it's not made by Christians. I know Rian Johnson used to subscribe to Christianity, unfortunately he doesn't anymore. The film isn't being made by people who share my same worldview, so why should I expect the film to be 100% completely theologically sound and portray Christianity properly? And that's a criticism that a couple of my friends had coming out of the film. They were like, oh, the film was filled with so much bad theology. And I had another friend of mine going, yeah, it's Hollywood. What'd you expect? And I agree with him on that. But as a Bible-believing, Bible-living Christ follower, it does still kind of peeve me to a certain degree how I feel this film portrays Christianity. And it might give non-believers who, as a Christian, I'm trying to reach for Christ, the wrong idea about Jesus and what he teaches and who he is. I love that there was a decent amount of biblical truth to be found in this film, but there was also some stuff that I just didn't really like and that I didn't think was exactly biblically true. And there's also a couple moments where, as the Plugged In review of this film says, if you don't know what Plugged In is, it is a fantastic Christian movie reviewing website by Focus on the Family, and I kind of agree with something they said in their review where it feels like at moments, it feels like the film is kind of pointing its finger at conservative Christians, and I know from watching interviews with Rian Johnson that he didn't want the film to be offensive and feel finger-waggy, but I feel like there are a few moments in this film where it does feel like he is kind of pointing his finger at conservative Christians. But I also agree with Plugged In that those same conservative Christians like myself would agree with a lot of what Father Judd has to say. So those are the reasons why I didn't always enjoy this film and why I felt it was kind of disappointing. But this film, spoiler alert for a video that's coming out towards the end of the year, it is still one of my favorite films I've seen this year. I think I'd probably give this film I'm really teetering between a 7 or an 8 out of 10, so I'm gonna say 7.5. Thank y'all so much for watching this review. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Wake Up Dead Man if you have seen it, especially if you're a Christian out there. Let me know, did you think the film portrayed Christianity very well? Do you think it had some good theology, or do you think most of the theology was really bad? I really am curious what Christians are thinking about this film. But if you enjoy my content, subscribe right over here and click right here to watch my review for the previous Knives Out film, Glass Onion. I also have a review for the first Knives Out film, which you can find on my channel. And stay tuned, I plan to do a video ranking all 3 Knives Out films. It should be out in the next 3 to 4 days from when this video is uploaded. But right here is a playlist of all the films that have come out this year that me and my friends have reviewed. Hopefully you can find another video on my channel to enjoy. With all that said, I hope y'all have a blessed one, guys. I'll see y'all in the next video.